You know what pisses me most off about this movie? This was supposed to be the fucking release date for Saw 11, but instead, Saw 11 got canceled and we got this piece of shit. Actually, you know what's even worse? Well, it's not really worse than that, but it's right up there. It got prime time spoopy season release when it fucking sucks. This should be at best a January release. Considering how poorly the first one was received, and the fact that they had to move this release date something like twice. But anyways, welcome back, and once again, thank you for trusting me with your full spoiler movie review. That thing I do, where I watch movies and then I tell you all about them. As always, we are unpaid and unsponsored, and spoilers. Spoilers, all the spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, you can go ahead and scroll. I won't be offended. Spoilers, here we go. This is Strangers, Chapter 2. Also known as the bane of my existence. Sorry, I have Philippa on me. Say hi, Phil. Good girls. And you're probably wondering, Candy, why the fuck are you Kronk as a junior chipmunk? Because we spent an ass ton of time in the woods and it felt right. Squeak, squeaker, squeak, squeakums. But anyways, let's get into it. Alright, we wake up in the hospital. I cannot remember what this bitch's name is, but she finds out her boyfriend is dead, and, she's all upset with that. So then she has to talk to the sheriff and the deputy, and the sheriff was all like, "Are you sure it happened that way? You were under a lot of stress." She's like, "Yeah." But then the nurse comes in and says that the doc said it's time to go, and then she's like, "Hey, I'm Nurse Danica, again." Like, she's introduced herself like twice. Gives her some pain meds. And then she goes to check her phone. She's got text from her sister, who apparently is in England, but is flying back and has arranged for a private ambulance to come get her to transport her to the hospital in Portland, because she's at a tiny county hospital in the middle of nowhere. Oh yeah, she fell asleep for a second, had a dream about her boyfriend, turned into a nightmare, and then she woke up, and then that happened. But then she gets a call from an unknown number, and it's like, is Tamara there? How'd they get her number? I would imagine maybe he left his cell phone somewhere and they went through it. Legitimately, I have no idea how they got her number the more I think about it. I mean, most people have locks on their phones, so how would they know his password? Unless it was his cell phone, but the background was a picture of him, and I'm assuming if he has a girlfriend, he's not going to use a selfie as his background, so I think it's her phone. But we're going to come back to that because it's actually important. Anyway, she gets a cell phone call from an unknown number, and then she hears somebody running down the hall. It sounds like the doctor, and it sounds really scary. You see a nurse that was standing outside smoking a cigarette and was on a cell phone, but then she wasn't there, and there was just like a blood spatter. And I thought it was Nurse Danica, but I guess not. Which, if you're gonna do that, I probably would have picked up the IV pole to fucking smash someone with, but whatever. She walks into the hallway, she's walking down the hall. There's not a single other person in this hospital. Not a single one. It's a pretty big hospital. I mean, they had at least 5 bays, I think, in their ED. But there's no patients. There's no nurses, there's no janitorial staff, there's no families waiting, and you just know there's a little old man somewhere in this hospital that just had a hip replacement and is probably waiting on some water to take his Coumadin. Sorry, buddy, you're not getting your pills today. I mean, this whole thing is empty. I guess there was only 2 nurses and 1 doctor in this entire hospital. I don't fucking know. But surprise, guess who it is? It's the fucking strangers. Well, are they the strangers? Or are the people there attacking the strangers? Because the whole point is, you were home. So who exactly in all this is the strangers? Anyway, she walks into the ED thing trying to hide herself, so she closes all the curtains in each of the ED bays, and she gets down, she crouches down in one, and the baghead man with the axe, because he can see right through the doorway and through the windows to where she is, and so he walks down that way, and he's pulling back curtains to figure out which one she's hiding behind. But surprise! She was in the bathroom by the door, which I don't know how she got there, because he could see her the whole fucking time. And even if he had his back turned, it's a teeny tiny little hallway sort of thing. So, even if she tried to run behind him, he would have seen. She takes off running. The one that looks like Betty Boop sees her. She climbs in a service elevator, and it takes her all the way down to the basement, and she runs into the morgue. So at this point, there has to be more than 2 nurses and a doctor, because there were at least 4 dead bodies in that morgue. At least 4. 2 on the table, 2 in the freezer. But she hides in one of the filing cabinets that has her boyfriend in it. And Baghead Axeman comes in there to attack her, but then the med tech or I guess the coroner's assistant or whatever walks in, and he kills him and drags him out. And then she gets away, and she starts running up the road in the rain. Gets picked up by a car that turns out to be Miss Danica, and Miss Danica's friend, life partner. I don't know. But they're like, hey, let's take you to our house and we'll get y'all stitched up. And she's kind of weirded out about this because they're kind of weird. They've got some Hellfire and Brimstone playing on their radio, but then they're driving and they see their 2 other male roommates walking down this road in the middle of the motherfucking rain. And then they just let them get in the back of the car, even though this chick is panicked. And it turns out one of them has a smiley face tattooed behind his ear, which is weird because they kept putting them all over where they were getting, or in the cabin where, her and her boyfriend were getting basically tortured. So she's all flipping tits. And then the girl in the passenger seat takes out like this fucking Bowie knife to cut and eat an apple in a car where it's pouring down rain and it's bumpy. But whatever, that just seemed like the ultimate time to do that. She puts it back like on top of the center console, to which the main bitch grabs it and yeets herself out the door, rolling down a hill, and takes off running. Now, before she managed to make it out, she did grab a first aid kit and hide it in a jacket she was wearing. So then she rolled out the door and she went through the woods. Well, by the time it gets to daylight, she's at a stream and she realizes like this big cut she has like in her stomach when she first got stabbed is all open and shit. Now, she pulled gauze off of it, but instead of just, pushing more fucking gauze onto that bitch, packing it and fucking going, she decided she was going to sew it up herself while screaming erratically, which, I mean, I know it hurts, but we sat down and had time to stitch ourselves and scream and make an ungodly amount of noise while there are 3 to 4 people trying to kill us. Oh shit, before we even get to the point where she's picked up in the car, she runs down the road and finds like this farm full of horses. And there was a truck there, and she tried to steal the truck, but there was no keys in the truck, so she was looking for some keys. Even though there were horses running around, she might not know how to ride a horse. She could have stole a horse, but then a lady came out, and she was like, don't steal my shit. And she had a gun pointed at her, and she's like, I need help. Please call the sheriff. And the lady was like, the sheriff's not going to help you. And she's like, why? And then the lady gets an arrow taken to the head by one of the Betty Boop ladies. And then that's when she gets picked up by Nurse Danica. But back to screaming by the river. She gets all stitched up. She keeps walking and decides to make a fire because she's cold. Even though we're still getting chased by like 4 different killers, we're gonna make a little campfire. Well, come to find out, the killers have, I guess, a trained boar that works like a bloodhound. Which, okay, I need to talk about this for a second. I'm from South Georgia. I know that wild pigs are mean as fuck, and I do mean mean as fuck. I mean, they will tear your ass up, and they will fuck up your car worse than a deer. But I did not know, and I'm not totally certain that's how pigs work, that they can just track down people. I mean, they can truffle hunt, so maybe? I don't know. But whatever, the CGI pig comes out of nowhere and starts attacking her, but she was inside of like an old car that was in the middle of the woods, so it starts like beating up the fucking car like Cujo. But she was like getting out of the car, but then the pig attacks her and she stabs it to death. And then she keeps going. She ends up back at the cabin. She's like grabbing stuff, and then she hears a noise, and this guy comes out of nowhere. He's like, I work for the Oregon something or another. The sheriff doesn't do anything about all these murders, so I'm here. He goes to put her in the car. They're supposed to get out of there, and then bam, another arrow to the head, and also one to the front of his car. So main bitch keeps driving, except now the car's overheating, and she pulls into somebody's driveway, which is the lake house. Turns out to be where Danica lives, with her 3 roommates. And Happy Face, man, I'm fairly certain is a killer. They don't say, but he drove away drunk, and then the lady killers like ended up there, and you're thinking, oh, it's Danica and her nice partner. But no, they were killed in the living room. She runs outside. The ambulance that was supposed to come get her, the driver is now dead, but the ambulance is there. She gets in, and there's one of the Betty Boops. She stabs her, starts driving the ambulance. Betty Boop comes back to life. She drives at full speed and hits a thing and flips, and Betty Boop's dead. Main bitch hides in the wood watching them. Baghead takes off Betty Boop's mask and reveals someone that I couldn't tell who it was. Shit, I'm out of time. Go to part 2, please. This is part 2 to my Strangers Chapter 2 review. Spoilers, all the spoilers. You get my point. So the main girl gets to the ambulance. And then one of the Betty Boop girls is in there and tries to attack her, but she stabs her with a pair of scissors that were just conveniently like sticking out of the closet at the house. And it was like in the side of the head, so you're pretty sure she's dead. Main girl gets in the seat and starts driving the ambulance, and surprise, Betty Boop is still not dead. So she's like behind the main girl. She's trying to choke her out with the seatbelt, but main girl puts on her seatbelt, her actual seatbelt, floors it, and flips the ambulance, which sends Betty Boop flying, I guess, and she is ejected, and she's laying on the ground dead. The main girl is doing that thing where she like slowly is going up to it to remove her mask to find out who it is, but then the truck that the other ones use shows up, so she goes and hides in the woods and watches so she can see. Baghead seems really upset about the whole situation and takes her mask off. And I can't tell who it is, like, at all. I'm fairly certain it was the server at the diner, but it's hard to see. Then we get a flashback, and we've had a few flashbacks throughout this whole movie, but I'm just going to tell it all in one go. Okay, so there was a little girl, I guess they were all at, like, parochial school or whatever, and she was playing in the sandbox, and the other girls were playing in, like, this little, like, playhouse or whatever. And then she looks over and there's another little boy. He was like bullying a different boy, but I guess she had a little crush on him. And then the bell rang and the little girls like ran out of the playhouse, and one like kicked her sandcastle on the way in. Like, they didn't show any outright bullying, but I guess we're supposed to assume that was the bullying. Except it was time to go in, so no matter what, that sandcastle was like getting knocked over. But the girl doesn't go inside, she just stays and plays in the sandbox with her doll. And then later on, it shows the girl and the boy, and they're playing with little pigs, which I'm assuming that's the pig that grew up to attack the main girl. And then one of the little blonde girls that was playing in the playhouse comes by with her bike, and I guess she really likes the boy, so she pretended to sprain her ankle, and it pissed off the one girl, so she runs away, and then she finds a mouse and picks it up and kills it. There's like a weird amount of animal death in this movie, which like it's only 2, but like too many. You see what I'm saying? And then later on, we see the little blonde girl and the boy like running around playing. She runs inside the playhouse or whatever. He knocks. He's like, "Is Tamara home?" I'm assuming Tamara's the girl. She opens the door and kisses him. And the other girl gets pissed off, knocks on the door, and is like, "Is Tamara home?" I thought maybe she was having some feelings, but it wasn't. The girl opened the door, and the one that killed the mouse, like, just starts beating her to death with a fucking rock. And then just sat down and played in the blood and drew a little smiley face. And the boy sat down with her and drew a smiley face. And that's where we're left. The end. And I forgot to explain the whole cell phone thing. Okay, so she had it with her in the hospital. Like, she was texting before everything happened. And then when everything started happening and she tried to go out the door, she was trying to get service to call, like, her sister or whatever. And it said no service. And I feel like she had it again at some point, maybe in the woods, but I can't remember. But then when she gets to the lake house where Nurse Danica and everybody lives, Nurse Danica had it in her desk. And she's like, "I saved it from the lost and found." Do you mean to tell me when they went back, or when whoever went back in and saw the dead people at the hospital, they saw a cell phone on the ground, instead of taking it for evidence, they put it in the lost and found? I call bullshit. So we got the cell phone issue. We've got a lack of hospital support staff. So we have the cell phone, the magic cell phone, the magic teleportation, the lack of staff, visitors, and or patients in this hospital. Which again, I feel bad for any patient that was fucking in there, because apparently there was only 2 nurses in this whole ass hospital. And now they're both dead. You know what, maybe that's why they had so many dead bodies in their morgue. Okay, they have a high ass mortality rate. They got a bigger mortality rate than fucking Seattle Grace. Sloan Memorial. We got 2 people conveniently killed in the head by an arrow, which that got exhausting. It was like every time somebody was coming to help, that was donezo. And they never had the crossbow unless there was another person on screen. Like, they're walking around the woods, no crossbow. As soon as somebody popped up conveniently to kill, crossbow. And now we have dead locals, which is kind of the antithesis of what they do. Or what these ones have been set up to do. Because didn't they set it up in the first one? The whole thing was like they were outsiders, they were visitors or whatever, so they were safe to murder. But now we have a ton of dead locals. What's the plan here? What are we going to do about that? I mean, it's one thing if the sheriff sweeps 10 to 15 murders of outsiders, like, under the rug, which he's already being investigated for. But how's he going to explain the dead locals to everyone else? You know what, I'm out of questions. I'm just mad. Could have had Saw 11. I'm giving it a 0 out of 10 because we could have had Saw 11. Instead, we got this. That's my argument. 0 out of 10. Goodbye.